Good evening. You're watching the news at 7:30 on ATV. I'm Emily Sue.
And I'm Joyce Wu. Here's a look at tonight's top stories.
Student leaders try to unite the city with the help of political heavyweights.
Health chief says compromise with poultry vendors could mean live chickens back on menu in days.
ATV boss says light at the end of the tunnel for embattled TV station.
Student group Scholarism is trying to reunite the city after it was divided due to last year's Occupy Street protests.
The group has written to 4 political heavyweights in a bid to calm the debate over political reform. Winner Wang reports.
After shutting down parts of the city and dividing society further with their lengthy street occupations last year, members of the student group Scholarism now appear to be trying to patch things up. The group has written to 4 political heavyweights, who they hope will somehow bring the city back together. Letters were sent to former Chief Executive candidate Henry Tang, ex-Financial Secretary Anthony Leung, ex-co-convener Lam Wun Kwong, and unofficial ex-co-member Bernard Chan.
Because they have quite important role in Hong Kong to solve the argument between the pro-democracy camp and the people who support the government. We hope to use through the discussion and the meeting to let the public know that students hope to solve the argument or the social burden in the society.
Henry Tang said he will wait until the second public consultation on political reform begins before he thinks about responding to the students. At the same time, Scholarism is standing firm on its vow not to accept any of Beijing's political reforms, which they view as fake universal suffrage. The students are also snubbing the idea of a none-of-the-above tick box on voting cards in the 2017 chief executive election. The so-called veto option was suggested by legal scholar Albert Chan as a compromise between the pro-Beijing and opposition camps. Chen said if more than half of voters choose the none-of-the-above option, the poll will be declared null and void, and an interim leader would have to be elected.
Based on the decision made on the 31st of August, if it do not have any room or space to modify, actually people who support democracy still cannot involve in a CE election, and just only the people who support the government and the pro-government side can finally become the chief executive of Hong Kong. Therefore, Scholarism do not agree. Scholarism do not agree to the idea of Professor Albert Chan.
The veto idea has been welcomed by a number of pro-government politicians, but dismissed as nonsense by pan-Democrats. Winner Wang, ATV News.
Health Secretary Ko Wing-man says the government is studying plans to make it easier for poultry traders to take live chickens to an inspection center in Takuleng before they're delivered to local markets.
He refused to comment on how the system will work and admitted that nearby residents need to be consulted first. Arthur Akule reports.
At talks with poultry traders yesterday, the government managed to convince them not to carry out their threat to let thousands of chickens loose on the already busy streets of Central and Tsim Sha Tsui. Health Chief Ko Wing-man said the government made some concessions, but the details were still being ironed out. The farmers' feathers were ruffled when they were told their birds would have to be driven to a quarantine center in Takuleng for inspection before being taken to markets. They were supposed to deliver and pick up the birds in the same vehicle, which they said drove up operation costs. Today, Ko said the Agriculture, Fisheries and Conservation Department would spend the next 2 days going over arrangements to temporarily allow the birds to be picked up in different trucks. But he refused to go into the details. Besides studying the feasibility and making sure safety standards were maintained, the department also needs to meet people living near the facility to see how they feel about the plan. If all goes well, a small number of live chickens could make it to markets this week, avoiding a threatened 21-day self-imposed ban by traders. The Takuleng facility is smaller than the Cheung Wan wholesale market, where the birds are usually dropped off, but it was shut down on Wednesday after the H7 strain of bird flu was detected in a batch of chickens from Guangdong. That also led to the cull of 19,000 birds at the market. Arthur Urquiola, ATV News.
ATV's Executive Director Ip Ka Po has promised to pay the channel's 700 staff the second half of their November salary no later than Wednesday.
Ip called it a miracle that only 30 people have walked out over the pay dispute. but insisted freelancers are willing to work for nothing for the sake of the company if more people leave. It's definitely one of the gloomiest New Years for the city's oldest free-to-air channel. As of today, ATV still owes its more than 700 employees half their November salaries and all of December's. But more paychecks are due this week, according to the troubled broadcaster's executive director, Ip Kapo. He guaranteed today that the remaining owed wages for November will be paid no later than Wednesday. Ip also said he will announce tomorrow when his cash-strapped channel will have enough cash, around $15 million, to pay employees their December salaries. Under the city's labor laws, an employee can consider their contract automatically terminated if their employer fails to pay them their monthly salary after 30 days. Ip said he's amazed that only 30 ATV staff walked out using this clause over November's pay delay.
I think this is a miracle of Hong Kong history that almost over 95% of the staff still working in the company without a lot of hurdles or a lot of disturbance to our normal broadcasting.
Ip added there are contingency plans if more staff walk out over the growing December wage delay, insisting there are freelancers willing to come in and work for nothing to save the company.
I think that most of the finance, if they would like to help ATV, I think that they are not the money matter. They want to make ATV still survive.
At least 5 senior news staff have called it quits over the pay dispute. When asked whether bringing in freelancers meant the current staff are disposable, this is what he has to say.
We treasure all the staff working in ATV, but it's a regret. But if we can't promise them anything, I only what I can do is that they can rethink that the future of ATV.
The executive director said more interested buyers have been contacting him over the past few days, hoping to lift ATV out of its dire financial situation. Ip said the channel's free-to-air license is luring them, and he expressed full confidence that it will be renewed before it expires at the end of next year. His reassurances came amid growing legal woes for the broadcaster, which is being prosecuted over delayed salary payments from July to September. Today, Labour Minister Matthew Cheung said he's not ruling out taking further legal action for the November and December pay delays. But he said it would rely on employees being willing to testify. He confirmed that some ATV staff have approached his department to chase up their severance payments. Cheung added that he hasn't received an application to liquidate the company. The Labor Department says it might prosecute Korean cosmetics chain Misha, which owes former staff millions of dollars in wages.
This comes after the company suddenly closed its shops earlier this week. Here's Arthur Akilla.
Since branches of Korean cosmetics brand Misha suddenly closed their doors on Friday, the Labor Department says dozens of former employees have approached it for assistance.
We have already made arrangements to set up 2 special hotlines, one for the business staff so that they can understand their employment rights, and then another one is a hotline to help them to find jobs.
Tong said the priority now is tracking down their employer.
We do not rule out any possibility, any approach, as long as we can reach out to the responsible person. We want to contact the employer or the former employer so as to resolve this issue satisfactorily.
Labor and Welfare Secretary Matthew Cheung also expressed concern, saying more than 100 people have been affected. He said the department has not ruled out prosecuting the employer. Before its sudden closure, the chain had 20 outlets across the city, and staff are owed millions in unpaid wages. Arthur Akilla, ATV News.
North Korea has slammed the U.S. for imposing new sanctions, calling it part of a hostile and inflammatory policy. Pyongyang's state-run news agency said U.S. policies aim to stifle the North, but they will only harden its will and resolution to defend the sovereignty of the country. The U.S. placed more sanctions on North Korea as punishment for the cyber attack on Sony Pictures, which Pyongyang denies. The attacks came as the studio was due to release The Interview, a comedy about the assassination of North Korean leader Kim Jong-un. Security experts say the hack was more likely the work of a disgruntled former employee.
A major search is underway after a cargo ship overturned off the coast of Scotland.
But first, in our roundup of world news, firefighters are still trying to extinguish massive bushfires in Australia. Hundreds of firefighters continue to battle massive wildfires that have forced thousands of people to flee their homes in South Australia. Dozens of houses have been destroyed by blazes in the region.
We've got generations of people who have never experienced a fire of this size and ferocity, or the impact, or nor have they understood what it meant for them, or the fact that it could actually affect them.
The family home's been levelled a couple of days ago up there on Hannaford's Hump Road, and we're just wondering what the next step is in regards to getting in and try and recover some valuables for the family.
Hot and windy conditions that fanned the flames since Friday eased today, prompting officials to lower the fire's danger rating from the highest level. Lifeboats have been searching for crew members from a cargo ship that capsized off the north coast of Scotland. The Coast Guard was alerted by a passing ferry after it saw the hull of the cement carrier Semfjord drifting around 24 kilometers northeast of Wick. Helicopters scoured the area for survivors. The cargo ship was originally registered in Cyprus and was sailing to Runcorn, Cheshire. 7 Poles and 1 Filipino were on board the vessel. Hundreds of police officers from across the U.S. attended the wake of a slain New York City policeman, Liu Wenjian. The day-long event was also attended by city officials.
We have to come together as the family of New York and stand strong. And that's a message for all New York.
When we lose an officer anywhere in the country, anywhere in the world, we all feel it.
Liu and his Hispanic partner were shot dead while sitting in their patrol car 2 weeks ago. Their killer wanted revenge for the deaths of 2 black men at the hands of white policemen who then went unpunished. Liu's funeral arrangements had to be delayed so relatives from China could travel to New York. Time now for sports with Bo Lang.
So what do you have for us tonight, Bo?
We have FA Cup action and La Liga. Swansea are through to the 4th round of the FA Cup after beating Tremere Rovers, and over in Spain, Atletico Madrid triumphed over Levante.